Hello, America. Welcome. It's Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, as always, text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777, and you can get the show notes, the live stream, the podcast. I do have a request for those of you out in Oklahoma listening on KRMG in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm coming out there to see you guys 2 days after the election. It's a completely free event. You just need to pre-register. If you go to krmg.com or use the KRMG app, you can sign up and come hang out with me. It'll be a great time in Tulsa. I have never been to Tulsa. I am looking forward to coming out there. Now, I got to talk about the Liz Cheney event. In particular, well, the cheap dates. If you haven't heard yet, this is not going to help the Harris campaign. So she has this town hall. Maria Shriver is there. It's Maria Shriver. You got Liz Cheney. You got Kamala Harris. You got a bunch of liberal and moderate Republicans who hate Donald Trump. Liz Cheney cast some doubts on the post-Roe GOP, and that's been taken by a lot of people to say that she is no longer pro-life. I think her position is certainly moderated. She would still consider herself pro-life, but she does think, like Donald Trump does, that some of the state level laws have gone too far after the end of Roe. She doesn't think that getting rid of Roe was bad, but what came after Roe was not good. And that is Donald Trump's position, so I'm not going to attack her on that, as some have. But there are some points here that need to be made about. I actually think Cheney and these Lincoln Project guys and these other supposed Republicans for Harris have actually probably cost Harris victory. To begin with, though, we got to set the stage here. They're at this town hall with Maria Shriver, formerly of NBC News. And someone in the crowd wants to know if they're going to have the chance to ask questions. I mean, this is, after all, a town hall. And what do you do at town halls? You have a discussion with the crowd. That's what a town hall is. People come to your event. They get to ask you questions. You answer them, but not at Kamala Harris's town hall.
You're not, unfortunately. We have some predetermined questions, and hopefully I'll be able to ask some of the questions that might be in your head. I hope so.
Predetermined questions. And hopefully I'll be able to ask some of the questions that are in your head. Yes, me, a wealthy woman from California who is there with Kamala Harris. Surely she walks enough in their shoes to ask the relevant questions for the middle class. And that gets to the problem here. There are a group of Republicans who are not conservatives. They had the R letter next to their name, but they were perfectly fine hanging out with the Democrats. A name you may not know, Sarah Longwell, with, I guess, the Bulwark Now, Never Trump, Lincoln Project, liberal Republican, worked for the lobbying industry, not really a strategist, has claimed to be a strategist, not nearly as accomplished as how she's billed on TV, and she's liberal. A lot of these Republicans who have gone to Kamala Harris, you know where they have a common tie, and it's that they're not really pro-life. They're not really conservative. In fact, they kind of drip with disdain for what they think are the Hicks and Rubes of the Republican Party. And this is the problem with these anti-Trump Republicans that Kamala Harris is parading around. They no more relate to middle-class conservative concerns as Kamala Harris. They had an opportunity to tell Kamala Harris, you need to moderate your positions. Listen, Kamala Harris, for example, has come out on fracking and said, I support fracking. Now, there's been some nebulosity in the last 24 hours we're going to get to here, but she's come out and said, no, she's not for banning fossil fuel cars. She's not for banning fossil fuels. She's not for banning fracking. The environmental activists of America know Kamala Harris is lying through her teeth, and they will let her do whatever she needs to do to get elected. So Kamala Harris could have come out for expanded oil drilling, and they would have let her get away with it. Pro-abortion activists know beyond the shadow of a doubt Kamala Harris supports killing babies. Kamala Harris could have moderated her position. and they would have let her get away with it. But when you have all of these cheap dates coming your way from the GOP, why bother? Why bother moderating your position? Isaac Score, I may be Isaac mispronouncing your name. We have not met in person. Isaac Shore, I like the guy. I misspelled his name in my show notes today. He put up a tweet yesterday that it got a lot of like angry denunciation reaction from the sorts of people he's talking about. Let me just read you what he wrote. You can, if you're subscribed to the show notes, text data to 33777. You can get it. Isaac writes, I felt this way for a while, but it really struck me watching the Sarah Longwell Kamala Harris event. Elite and never Trumpers probably would have been more helpful to Democrats if they actually pushed them to moderate rather than just declaring their undying devotion for them. Would have been more politically effective, but a lot less monetizable. Says a lot about the divergence, and Longwell is a particular egregious example because they're stated and revealed preferences. For the record, I've never voted for Trump and never will. Never Trumpers here reporting for duty, but I don't think publicly being in the tank for Democrats is the boon to them that so many ex-Republicans seem to think it is. Also, vote shaming is stupid and narcissistic. Longwell in particular is a particularly narcissistic bully who wants to shame anyone who says they don't like Trump but refuses to vote for Harris or defends Trump. You defend Trump, anything he's done or said, if you defend him, she'll attack you. She doesn't care. She's a cheap date for the Democrats in large part because she's a liberal, so she doesn't really care about Kamala Harris's liberal positions because she largely agrees with those positions and always has, and is now very comfortable dripping with the disdain publicly she's always had privately for people in the party she used to belong to. The problem with Liz Cheney's endorsement of Kamala Harris as well is, I mean, she hasn't used any sort of leverage to get Kamala Harris to moderate any position that Kamala Harris has. You would have thought that Kamala Harris, and it could have cut it if she wanted Liz Cheney's support so badly, that Liz Cheney could have leveraged that support to get Kamala Harris to moderate positions. Like one that's near and dear to Liz Cheney's heart, not getting rid of the filibuster. Nope. Cheap dates. These people aren't that good at politics, are they? None of them are that good at politics, it seems. Because in politics, you got something the other side needs, you leverage it for some sort of compromise in your clout. And you can get something out of it. None of these people tried. They're so anti-Trump that they just wanted to support Kamala Harris. And in the process, they're costing Kamala Harris her election. They're costing Kamala Harris the election because they provided Kamala Harris no incentive to move to the center on any issues. Whether they want to admit it or not, Donald Trump has moved more to the center than Kamala Harris has. Donald Trump has moved to the center on transgender surgery, same with talking the other day about parental consent. He's moved to the center on abortion, wanting the federal government to cover IVF and contraception, wanting to longer term to have an abortion than a fetal heartbeat ban. Donald Trump is more centrist when it comes to economic affairs. Donald Trump is more centrist when it comes to all sorts of governance issues than Kamala Harris. She could have gone that way. These people from the GOP who hate Donald Trump could have gotten her to moderate her positions, but they didn't even try. And now here's where we are. We're 2 weeks before the election, and what do they have left? Shame and bullying. Seems to be their favorite tactics. They will shame anyone if they decide they're voting for Donald Trump. You're standing for a man who's a white supremacist and insurrectionist. Well, really, you're standing for people who believe that boys can be castrated and that the Jews are bad. We don't believe it. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Kamala Harris believes in taxpayer-funded gender transition surgeries for prisoners. Donald Trump is bad. Kamala Harris ain't all that. I mean, these people never bothered to try to get any level of moderation out of her. They could have leveraged it. They didn't. They were their own worst enemy here. And a lot of it is, you've got to understand that they're not driven by support for Kamala Harris. They're driven by hate. And when you're driven by hate, you're driven by emotion. And when you're driven by emotion, you behave emotionally and oftentimes irrationally, and you're not very thoughtful. You just got gut level reaction. That's why they're bullying. That's why they're shaming. They're not trying to make an articulable case for Kamala Harris. They're just, Donald Trump bad, Orange Man bad, must vote Harris, or you hate America. No. You like America, but I'll tell you what you like more. You like having money in your checking account to buy groceries. You like being able to take a family vacation somewhere without having to cut back. You like your fast fossil fuel burning vehicle that you can't use if you can't use your electric vehicle in North Carolina right now because there's no power. Oh, these Republicans, when the election is over, they're smugly going to claim it wasn't their fault. It's just these Americans are bigots. They're going to hate you. If you vote for Donald Trump, they're going to hate you. If a majority of Americans vote for Donald Trump, or if the Electoral College goes Donald Trump's way because a majority of people in the Electoral College vote for Donald Trump, they're going to hate you. They're going to hate the system. They're going to hate America. They're going to hate it all because they don't have any humility. They don't have any recognition of how to actually accomplish something. It's all passion and emotion for them at this point. And when it's all passion and emotion, your reason goes out the window. And again, it's why the drip, drip, drip has all been shame and bullying. It's their final card to play in this election. You hate America if you don't vote for Kamala Harris. You're fine with a dictator if you don't vote for Kamala Harris. You're fine with an authoritarian who'll launch a coup and never leave office if you don't vote for Kamala Harris. Nobody believes it. They believe it. Nobody else does. And they can't relate to the people who don't believe it. They don't even want to try to understand the person who doesn't see it. And here's ultimately what it's all about. These people don't really believe in America. They believe in themselves. They don't believe in you. They believe in themselves. And your rejection of their argument for Harris is a rejection of them, and they're taking it personally. I have grave reservations about Donald Trump, as I do Kamala Harris. I frankly think January 6th is disqualifying. But how could I cast a vote for a man when I think January 6th is disqualifying? Because I think the entirety of Kamala Harris's record is disqualifying. I think Kamala Harris bailing people out of prison for burning down America is disqualifying. I think Kamala Harris thinking abortion until birth is disqualifying. I think Kamala Harris wanted to get rid of the filibuster so she can pack the Supreme Court with a bunch of progressives to undo generations of legal reforms is disqualifying. I think Kamala Harris wanted to get rid of the filibuster to pass abortion laws is disqualifying. I think all of Kamala Harris's career in office is disqualifying to her being president of the United States. And if I got to go with him or her, I'm going to go with him. Doesn't mean I endorse him. I don't particularly care for him. But I'll go with him because I actually believe in America. And so I know that in 4 years, Donald Trump will be term limited and go away. I actually believe in the strength of the institutional, constitutional republic of the United States to have checks and safeguards on Donald Trump. I actually believe that in 4 years, there will be another election in this country, and we'll do this all over again. The people who've decided they hate Donald Trump so much that they've got to vote for Kamala Harris, or the people saying, I don't believe America is good enough or strong enough to resist his worst impulses. And I happen to believe America does and is and will survive and will be fine because these people have decided they only believe in themselves. And so they're going to vote for Kamala Harris. They don't believe in you. They don't believe in this country, and they will shame you and bully you because if you don't go their way, you're rejecting them. And that's too big for their frail ego to get away with. And that, again, is why they need to be ignored. I wish to ask a provocative question. What if the red wave has started up again? Let's back up. There was a red wave in 2022 until the Dobbs decision came out. And it was that issue that wiped out the red wave. The red wave ceased to exist in every major media poll. And the only reason Republicans continued to believe there was a red wave was because Republican pollsters continued to put out garbage polls showing a red wave and suggesting that the major media institutions were trying to suppress the Republican vote. Turns out the major media institutions were right. And Democrats said this was because Republicans gravitated to Joe Biden. 13% of Republicans, in fact, did side with the Democratic Party in 2022. What if that was all about abortion? Now, 2 years later, a majority of states have either passed laws to restrict abortion or have passed laws, referenda, and constitutional amendments to grant abortion rights. So even though abortion continues to be a big issue in polling and people's lived experience in lives, it's not that big of a deal now. So people are breathing a little easier. And they're back to, man, I really hate the Democrats. Joe Biden sucks and Kamala Harris is no better. And the momentum shift has been towards Donald Trump among black men and Hispanic women and white men and married white women. They're all starting to trend to Donald Trump. This isn't an abortion election, and Democrats have decided to try to stoke the abortion message. And people are like, wait a second, my life hasn't really changed since Dobbs in 2022. I was scared that it would. We're 2 years removed from that. I'm no longer scared that this is a thing, and even Donald Trump wants IVF. And maybe we're about to actually see a bigger red wave than what polling would otherwise suggest right now. Maybe, just maybe. That's why the Democrats are starting to freak out so much. They see it in their internals, and it will become public in the public polling, which always trend later. Now, I want to tell you about the Eden Pure Thunderstorm. You can buy one, get one free this week at EdenPureDeals.com, and you put in Eric Bogo, ERICKBOGO as your discount code, EdenPureDeals.com, Eric Bogo. You buy one, you get one free. You buy 5, you get 5 free. You buy 10, you get 10 free. You get them at a great price, and you get one free for every one that you buy. EdenPureDeals.com, the discount code, Eric Bogo, ERICKBOGO. There's no space there. The Eden Pure Thunderstorm air purifier not only traps dust and pollen, but it also wipes out odors. It wipes out the stinky odors. It wipes out pet odors, litter box odors, dirty diaper odors, fish odors, smoke odors. You can plug it up with a USB cord. You can plug it up into the wall. You can plug it up in a rental car. If someone smoked in the rental car before you get there, or in a hotel room, plug it into the wall. It just works. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code this week, Eric Bogo, ERICKBOGO. Buy one, get one free. EdenPureDeals.com. Discount code Eric Bogo. Hello there. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here, and I am so delighted to have you with me nationwide. I love you guys, even when we disagree. The phone number, if you want to be on the show, 877-973-7425. I want to take Gene's phone call, calling from Greenville, South Carolina. Gene, welcome to the show. How are you?
Yeah, but that's Greenville, North Carolina. That's
North Carolina. Okay, so Charlie had it right, and I was about to ridicule him publicly for getting it wrong, so I'm glad you said North Carolina, or I would have really, I would have to own this. He would hold it over my head the rest of his life that he was right, and I said he was wrong.
Yeah, that would be a tough thing to do, I'm sure.
What's going on?
I'm just calling. I couldn't agree with you more, and I appreciate your candor in the way you spoke about why you would vote for Trump over Harris. I thought that was very well put. Question I had kind of deals with something you dealt with during your last segment, and that is back in 2022, we were speaking of that red wave and even possible a red tsunami that barely turned into a peak ripple. And then there's the idea, do we need to be careful about a fear of overconfidence going into this? As we know, a team that is ahead may get complacent. A team that's behind may redouble their efforts to win. And so how do we balance those things?
So I've thought about this. Gene, this is such a good question. It really is. And I need every single person to listen to me here, because every day now, every single day for the last week, I have been suggesting the trend lines look like this is headed in Donald Trump's favor. And every day, I get emails from people saying, don't say that. People are going to get complacent. So what do you want me to say? Do you want me to say it looks like Kamala Harris is going to win? I don't actually believe that's true. But do you want me to say that, and then you get upset and you don't go vote? You say, well, it's in the bag. I'm not going. No. I'm trying to tell you the truth. So here's the thing. I genuinely, personally believe Republicans want to win so bad. It does not matter what I tell you. People are going to go turn out and vote. I don't think there's going to be complacency. I genuinely do not believe there will be complacency because it is so close, even with the trend lines in Trump's direction, and people are so badly either want to vote for him or want to vote against Kamala Harris. I truly don't think we're going to have a complacency issue. I don't see it. I don't see it in the data. I am willing to be wrong about stuff, but all I ask people to do is bring me contrary data because I try to be data-driven. And there's a reason I'm data-driven because I am not at heart a data-driven person. The reason I'm a data-driven person when I do this program is because I don't want to let my emotions get the best of me. So what does the data tell me? And the data tells me that Republican voters right now are more enthusiastic than Democratic voters to vote. The data tells me right now that black voters are not enthusiastic to vote for Kamala Harris. The data tells me that single women are turning out overwhelmingly for Kamala Harris, but that men are so disproportionately voting for Donald Trump that is overwhelming the women for Harris. The data is telling me that married women are slightly breaking to Donald Trump. The data is telling me that in Pennsylvania, Donald Trump has done what he needs to do to get people to go vote for him. The Democrats are telling me that they're scared. The Democrats are telling me they're nervous. The Democrats are telling me they're already stabbing each other in the back, blaming, and the rats are scrambling to get off the ship. The Democrats are telling me that they're going on Delta's website, United's website, and American's website and checking deals to move overseas. The Democrats are telling me everything I need to know that their internal polling is that bad. Folks, Pennsylvania should not be a toss-up seat for Bob Casey Jr. The Casey family are icons of Pennsylvania politics. Bob Casey Sr. was the last pro-life Democrat in a statewide elected office in America. He was a legend among pro-lifers and among Democrats. He was a tried and true blue Democrat, but defended pro-lifers, and the Democrats loved him. Bob Casey was a governor in Pennsylvania, and his son, Bob Casey Jr., who is nothing, can't compare to his father. But Bob Casey Jr., due to state beloved of the name, they sent him to Washington, D.C. They still love the name Bob Casey. They still love the Casey family. This should not be a tied race in Pennsylvania, and it is. There's momentum for Dave McCormick. And if there is momentum for a U.S. Senate candidate in Pennsylvania that's a Republican, there is real momentum for Donald Trump, who is Casey or McCormick is riding coattails. And if you win Pennsylvania, Donald Trump is going to win Arizona. Donald Trump is going to win Georgia. Donald Trump is probably going to win North Carolina. Yeah, the hurricane affects it a little bit, but I still think he's going to win North Carolina. If he wins Pennsylvania, that's it. Doesn't matter about Wisconsin and Michigan, but if he wins Wisconsin and Michigan, it's gone. I mean, this is Donald Trump has multiple avenues to win in ways Kamala Harris doesn't. And forget all the data. Forget all the data. Just look at the way the Democrats are operating. This is not a hope and joy campaign. This is a slog campaign, and they're miserable. That gets me to this. CNN trotted out Black Beto. Oh, y'all know Black Beto. Black Beto is the Democrats' female black Beto O'Rourke. Stacey Abrams from Georgia, the governor in Georgia, Stacey Abrams. You know, she didn't lose. They don't like Republicans coming on television who are election deniers. Stacey Abrams denies she lost. They love having Stacey Abrams on it. And here, this is another data point. This is another data point on the Democrats are not feeling confident about this election. What are they talking about? Losing black men. This is Aaron Burnett and Black Beto, Stacey Abrams. Listen to this.
Do you agree that black men who are not voting for Harris and who didn't vote for you, as the pastor sees it, are misogynist. As he said, misogyny is still real in our community.
I would say, number one, I know it's a shock to everyone, but sexism remains real and a very pertinent issue. But I want us to be really clear that Kamala Harris is doing very well with black men. Black men are the second strongest cohort of Democratic voters. What we're seeing, though, is that she is showing them due respect by actually speaking to their issues. And those issues differ from other cohorts. I'm not quite certain why there is this panic about black men voting. They vote. In fact, they vote more than their counterparts in any other community for Democrats. However, we do have to acknowledge that there is sexism, there is racism, there are challenges in our electorate, and that's why it's so important that Kamala Harris is going everywhere and talking to everyone. She respects voters, she meets them where they are, and she refuses to be told that she has lost a cohort, lost a community, simply because she's different. The best candidates recognize that you win by meeting people where they are, and Kamala Harris is doing that every single day, and we'll keep doing it for the next 14 days until we get to Election Day.
And you listen to the Kamala Harris campaign, it's legal free weed for black men. That's their big winning issue for them. Can I just, as an aside here, I don't think Stacey Abrams listens to my radio show, but that Stacey Abrams that was on with Aaron Burnett last night, that's someone who wins elections. Just bear with me here. This is complete tangent. I interviewed in 2018, I interviewed every candidate who ran for governor in Georgia, Democrat and Republican. The two candidates who were the best interviews were the two who showed up without entourages. It was just them. And they were laid back, and they cracked jokes about themselves, and they were just real ordinary people. And they were Stacey Abrams and Brian Kemp. And then Stacey Abrams, that campaign in 2018, it broke her. She believed her own press, and she crashed and burned, and she came back in 22, and she lost. She lost her sense of humor. She lost her willingness to go and talk to people who disagreed with her. That loss hurt her in beyond just politically. The Stacey Abrams, who was right there that we just heard, who is fast on her feet, is sharp and to the point, and can pivot around what Aaron Burnett was getting at. That is the old Stacey Abrams. And you can hear it in her voice there. There was not as much anger in her voice. And that I actually, I just, as a tangent, it encouraged me, because I was struck in 2018 that Stacey Abrams, she was funny. She cracked jokes about herself. She didn't take herself seriously. She was quick on her feet. She could explain the other side's points better than the other side could. And that all went away. And here she is saying this, and she pivoted. But a couple of points here. One, she's a great surrogate for the Harris campaign. But two, she makes a point you have to understand, because she's right on. Black men are going to vote for Kamala Harris. Republicans keep talking about this wild number of black voters who are going to vote for Donald Trump. They're not. But and this is why I think Stacey Abrams' answer was very savvy, because she's telling the truth. A majority of black men and a majority of black women are going to vote for Kamala Harris, and disproportionately, they're going to turn out per capita at a higher rate than some other groups, demographic groups. This is what then she leaves on the cutting room floor and doesn't say. There's going to be a greater minority who vote for Donald Trump. You know, Donald Trump has been campaigning in black barbershops. He wouldn't be doing that unless he saw something in the polling. And you know, the reaction he gets in these barbershops is very favorable. MSNBC the other day did a live segment where they went into a barbershop and they wound up cutting it because all the black people in the barbershop were pro-Trump. Stacey Abrams is this very savvy answer. She tries to get around the whole misogyny stuff. She doesn't want to accuse the black men of misogyny like the pastor does. It's interesting. Barack Obama is willing to accuse the black men, say, y'all don't want a sister to be president. That has nothing to do with that. The bottom line here, and listen, again, I've said this before, and I get attacked by the left for saying this, but it's true. And if you spend enough time in the black community, I live in middle Georgia, for God's sakes. I can't go 5 feet without interacting with someone I know for the black community. And many of them are different. They'll never vote for Donald Trump, but you talk to them and here, I'll tell you exactly what they say. Kamala Harris isn't black. Now, don't shoot me for saying that. That is not me. And they don't mean it like the color of her skin. They mean it like she is not a descendant of slaves. She's a descendant of slave owners. She didn't grow up in this country. She grew up in Canada. She didn't grow up in the South. She grew up in Berkeley. She didn't have the racism and discrimination that people in the South had. She lived in progressive enclaves in this country. She doesn't know what it's like. And as Attorney General, she rounded young black men up and threw them in prison as a way to show the white leaders of California she was sufficiently pro-prison that she could be trusted with power. And them not voting for her has nothing to do with her being a woman. It has everything to do with her record and what she stood for. And yet they're being shamed, saying you're a sexist if you don't vote for her. You're a misogynist if you don't vote for her. And kudos to Abrams for dancing around that. But the point she made overshadows the point that has to be made, that yes, a majority of black men are going to vote for Kamala Harris. But instead of it being 90% of them, it might just be 70% of them. And if it's 70% of them instead of 90% of them, Trump wins. And of the 30% who won't vote for Harris, maybe only 10% of them vote for Donald Trump. But if the rest of them stay home, that's still a vote for Donald Trump. And that's what the Democrats have to contend with, and it's what Abrams was shuffled around avoiding dealing with is, a majority of black voters are going to vote for Kamala Harris. That's in the cards, it's in the polling, but the very same polling shows it's not a significant enough majority for her to win. She needs a higher number than she's getting, and it doesn't look like she's going to get it. I want you to get an account with Old Glory Bank. They're my bank. I have been a customer of Old Glory Bank since before they were an advertiser on this program. In fact, they're an advertiser on the program because I begged them. I wanted people to know about Old Glory Bank. Let me explain to you why I want people to know about Old Glory Bank. And it's my bank. I've now, full disclosure, invested in the bank. I believe in them that much. Why am I effusive with praise for this bank? Because a group of conservatives went out and decided that they were going to build a bank for conservatives by conservatives. And there were two paths. One path, one group decided to start a bank from scratch, and I don't think it went anywhere. With Old Glory Bank, they bought an existing bank in Oklahoma. They rebranded it as Old Glory Bank, and they rechartered it to be a national bank instead of a local bank, so they can take deposits from anywhere in the country. And because it's operated by conservatives for conservatives, you can use your debit card to buy a gun at a gun store. Did you know there are some banks where they won't allow you to use your debit card at a gun store? You can't buy ammo with it. You can't buy a gun with it. Old Glory Bank doesn't care. They're by conservatives for conservatives. You're not going to have your bank account canceled because you're a conservative. And some banks have canceled conservatives who were too public. Old Glory Bank has checking. It has savings. They do mortgages. They do loans. You can build a relationship, even though they're an online bank, with a banker. So they get to know you. They know your finances. They know your background when it's time for the loan, when it's time for the mortgage. You can do CDs. You can do it all at Old Glory Bank. They are my bank, and I have been so pleased with them. You will too. OldGloryBank.com is the website. OldGloryBank.com. You can fill out the account online like I did. I did it online at OldGloryBank.com. Member FDIC, equal housing lender, terms and conditions apply. Hello there. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number 877-973-7425. If you want to be on the program, if you will, please text the word Army, A-R-M-Y. Text it to 33777. Fill out your contact info, just your zip code, your email address, your name, and so that as we start traveling around the country, taking the gathering on the road and the like, we'll be able to reach out to you and tell you when we're in your area. Those of you listening on KRMG in Tulsa, Oklahoma, if you go to KRMG.com or the KRMG app, we'll be out there 2 days after the election. It's a free event. We'd love to see you. Go to the app or the website and you can register. You do have to register. It's free, but you got to register. Let's see. I got time to take Chris's phone call. Chris, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, Eric. Thanks for having me on. First-time caller, long-time listener, Tucker, Georgia resident.
Thank you.
Not a question so much as a comment, and I apologize up front because I know you have covered this ad nauseum, but I find that everybody I mentioned this to who is pro-choice, when you raise this data point with them, their minds explode. And I'm hopeful that some of your listeners will hear this and their minds will explode as well. And that is this issue of there are more abortions today than there were prior to the Supreme Court decision. I mean, that to me is something that cannot be echoed enough to folks because, you know, the left's argument on abortion is always access. It's not an access issue. There are more today, I'm going to repeat, more today than there were prior to the Supreme Court decision. It's not an access issue. And in my mind, it neutralizes that issue. And people need to know that. This is not...
Yeah,
access,
so Chris, I'm glad you make that point, and this is why this gets back to my earlier point of the polling shift. We're now 2 years removed from the Dobbs decision, and people really haven't experienced massive restrictions. There have been lots of fear scenarios by the media, but overall, women in America who want to have an abortion, it's still available, and in some states, they've now constitutionally fully legalized it. And those are the states where people were most anxious about it. And so it's neutralized the issue to some degree. The media cares about it greatly. The Democrats care about it greatly. But I think most people care about the economy much more. And that is shaping the election more than anything else out there. We'll be right back.